ways, I don't feel like this video even needs to be made. The main arguments are so obvious, but it seems like most mainstream conservatives subscribe either knowingly or unknowingly to some sort of bastardized concept of the horseshoe theory. You see this being pushed by normling shepherds like Prager, Sargon, Shapiro, Owens, Crowder, Peterson, D'Souza, etc. It results in them grouping all forms of authoritarianism into the same basket, and hence they come to these painfully parochial conclusions like Hitler was a leftist, or Nazism is socialism, or leftists are the real fascists. This talking point is a common example of conservative weakness. It's nothing but a cliché deflection tactic used by lukewarm fall nationalists in an attempt to insulate themselves from the left's constant conflation of anything even marginally right-wing to fascism or Nazism. But what they don't seem to realize is how petty and desperate it makes them look. Recently, on one of the more mainstream conservative channels I follow, I saw people equating Greta Thunberg's braids to those of girls portrayed in Volkish propaganda posters. After I noted that Greta is inspired by communism, not Nazism, a random conservative on the thread opined, quote, "The desires and tactics of the left fall completely in line with how Nazis operated and what they wanted," unquote. Now, fascism and communism are both authoritarian ideologies, but one cannot be a fascist and a communist simultaneously. It is a contradiction in terms, because despite similarities, there are massive differences between Marxist state socialism and National Socialism. They are mutually exclusive ideologies. Even if the differences between two things are trivial, they cannot by definition be the same. For example, the genetics between a chimp and a human are about 96% the same, but the difference between a human and a chimp is staggering. Well, at least most humans anyway. But the differences between Marxist state socialism and National Socialism are not trivial at all. Making such unsophisticated simplifications in reasoning reveals the laziness of a mind. Fascism and Nazism are nationalistic ideologies that promote hierarchy, essentialism, and ethno-separatism. They seek to preserve and emphasize class, culture, religion, tradition, as well as ethnic and racial identity. In contrast, Marxism is a globalist ideology that promotes egalitarianism, non-essentialism, and ethno-integration. It seeks to destroy and devalue class, culture, religion, tradition, as well as ethnic and racial identity. The Nazis sought to destroy the preexisting globalist order, which consisted of Western liberal capitalism and Marxist state socialism. They viewed these two ideologies to be divided only at face value, both being inherently Jewish ideologies, controlled mainly by Jewish people, and mainly serving the interests of international Jewry and Zionism. They held many races and peoples in very high esteem, but they held themselves above all others. But there are many, many groups in this world who hold themselves above all others, including the group that became synonymous with the history of the Nazis. So in many ways, fascism and communism have diametrically opposed goals for humanity and how to best organize it. The only people who frame them as equal are either uneducated or do so dishonestly because it is politically expedient for them. To say that Nazis are socialists in the context of Marxist Bolshevism is laughable. They likely would have exterminated most of what the left constitutes today. After all, during the war, they threw Bolsheviks into concentration camps. So what do you think they'd do with this abomination today? And yet you see this talking point over and over and over again for mainstream conservatives. The foremost of the few similarities shared by Marxist state socialism and fascism/Nazism is that they are both authoritarian ideologies, but their tactics and interests do not even come close to falling completely in line. Their differences are not subtle or nuanced. They are rather significant, actually, to anyone with a brain and a shred of intellectual honesty. Today's left is authoritarian, I have no doubt of that. They want to seize absolute control, reversible only through major conflict and violent upheaval. They're willing to abuse state power, deceive, manipulate, slander, and use physical force to get what they want. But the Nazis would enslave and or kill the entire lot of them, for being the degenerate anti-white scum that they are. If authoritarian is authoritarian is authoritarian, that simply would not be the case.